All right. Welcome, everyone. Lovely to see this great crowd here. You know, when I heard Quinn say, I've been in the industry for 25 years, it makes me feel damn old. It's like, holy cow. But wiser, that is. How many folks here are actually from San Diego, live in San Diego? All right. Any of you Chargers fans? Or are you sad to see Chargers leave LA? I'm from Chicago, so don't worry, no competitive. Anyone? All right. Any Bears fans in here? All right. I'm sorry for you and I'm sorry for me, but find me later and I'll buy you a drink. How many folks, okay, so serious questions now. How many of you folks in the room use Snowflake today? All right, great, excellent. How many of you folks that use Snowflake build customer-facing applications on top of Snowflake? All right, great, we've got a few in the room. And for those that don't, hopefully this will be a very enlightening session and you'll learn more and you'll be motivated to explore more. What if I told you that there are hundreds of companies today building customer-facing applications on top of Snowflake? What if I also told you that 30% of our customers, and we're at about 8,500 customers today, 30% of those customers are running Python in Snowflake and generating somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 million queries with Python a day in Snowflake? Customers are starting to run applications. They're starting to bring more workloads in Snowflake, and we're on a mission to make that easier, and we're partnering with top partners like DBT to make that happen. So if I look at Snowflake, even from the beginning, we were working with application developers. Some of our earliest and some of our largest customers were building apps on Snowflake, and the way they were building it is in a traditional app development way, which is you build an app layer and use Snowflake as a data layer. But the trend we're seeing now is more and more of those customers are coming to us and they're saying, hey, I don't want to own data and persist data and have to manage copies of data in that app layer. Help me, Snowflake. How do I push more into the Snowflake data cloud? And we've been making heavy investments in this area over the last 4 years to be able to disrupt application development. I'm going to walk you through that today. Let's rewind to 2014. Since we're on football, another trivia question. Does anyone know who won the Super Bowl in 2014? The Seattle Seahawks. Any Seattle Seahawks fans in here? All right. Excellent. In 2014, our mission was to disrupt analytics and help customers get rid of all these data silos. There was a proliferation of data silos out there. You had data warehouses, and data marts, and data lakes. You had application clouds, AWS, Azure, GCP. You had this influx of application clouds, Salesforce and Workday, and data was spread everywhere. And we invented Snowflake to consolidate all those data sources into one single copy of data, a single engine, which is interesting because I think I've seen some sessions this week where customers were still struggling with the separation of data warehouses and data lakes. And Snowflake, we've been helping solve those problems for a decade or more. And so we had a mission, we built this platform, and I feel that we've been very successful in doing that today. Again, 8,500 customers to prove that point, many of you in the room today. And if we fast forward to 2018, another question for you. Who won the Super Bowl in 2018? And before you answer, this is very near and dear to DBT's heart. But yes, Eagles, all right. It was the Eagles. I don't have any money for you, though, but see me after and I'll buy you a drink. So fast forward 2018, we had started to solve this problem of data silo proliferation. It's an interesting word, a tougher word for today. And we were being successful, but then we were seeing a new kind of data silo appear, which is the challenge around sharing data. A lot of customers were struggling with the traditional way of sharing data. Make a copy of data, you encrypt it, you use secure FTP to share it with the end user. That end user has to unpack it. And it's a very complex, very costly process. But the main thing was the amount of time before you can make that data useful is lengthy, and that data becomes less useful and more stale. And so what we did, we introduced this concept of secure real-time data sharing. So one Snowflake customer can access the data of another Snowflake customer, a provider, with the click of a button in real time, securely, through the same role-based access controls that we've implemented from the beginning. And that took off with customers building new business models. We launched these industry data clouds across industries like financial services and retail, where companies like BlackRock are leveraging data sharing, where customers can instantly access the data, their own data, expose their own data, and then access data sets from this partner, this company that they're using, all in real time. And if we forward to today, and I know it says 2022 out there because that's when we GA'd a lot of these innovations that I'll talk about. But fast forward to today, we want to disrupt app development. Again, if we think about what I started with, which is companies are saying, look, I still have a silo with the app layer and the data layer. Can you help me there? And we've made innovations so that customers can more easily build applications with Snowflake. They can leverage programming languages like Python, which we'll mention here, and Java and Scala. They can use their tools of choice, all running natively in Snowflake. They can launch a complete end-to-end application in Snowflake. They can essentially bring the work to the data instead of continuing to make copies of data out to the work, which adds complexity, adds cost, and it's a governance nightmare. And why is Snowflake interesting for folks that develop products and developers? And it goes back to our 3 core tenets. First of all, no developer wants to worry about optimizing their code or optimizing infrastructure for their code, having to make compromises. They want to be able to just build code, run it, and have it scale as needed and scale on demand when you get more users on the system. And Snowflake, from the beginning, our architecture was built around leveraging elasticity, being able to scale out, scale up, resources on demand, and also do that economically by suspending resources when they're not in use. So it's great from a development standpoint. They also want simplicity. They don't want to have to deal with managing underlying infrastructure, managing partitioning clusters or backups. With Snowflake, we built it as a managed service with near zero maintenance from the beginning. Everything's automated. So then developers can focus on what matters to the business, which is building new features, new functionality, innovating at the application layer. And then lastly, they want access to data to make the application richer. Not only the data that lives within their organization, but also data within their customers, within their partners, and third-party data sets that, again, add value, weather data, financial data, et cetera. This is why they're finding the Snowflake platform as being a great platform to be able to develop applications on top of, but they wanted more. They wanted more capabilities, and this is what we've been investing in. So let's show you what we've been investing in. And you see the chart here. I'm going to focus on the top 4 for this session, which is really around data transformations and building applications in Snowflake. But even architecturally, we've developed Snowflake to be able to handle the challenges around different types of data, whether they're structured, semi-structured, unstructured. Again, scaling out compute resources elastically, making it multi-cloud, and giving the ability to do things like high availability across clouds, across regions. And then last year, we introduced something called Unistore because a lot of customers were building applications on Snowflake. But then the transactional part of the application, to maintain state, as an example, couldn't fit on Snowflake. It wasn't from a performance standpoint, we couldn't support it, and so they would have to stand up another database. Well, we introduced Unistore, something called hybrid tables that you'll see on this chart back here. Sorry, I point to this window. You guys are looking at that window. Hybrid tables now allows you to run an entire app, including that high concurrency, low latency type of workload that's needed for things like transaction state. We're going to focus on Snowpark, which is our way to introduce extensibility so that you can programmatically manipulate, access data using more than just SQL. Again, Python, Java, Scala. We're going to focus on Streamlit, a company we acquired last year to make it easier to build apps from the ground up, build UIs from the ground up. Again, just using Python. We're going to talk about Snowpark Container Services, where you can launch an application end-to-end inside Snowflake, as long as that application can be containerized in a Kubernetes framework. And then we're going to talk about how you can monetize those applications if you're building apps in Snowflake, and you want to take them to customers and make it easier for customers to find them and be able to purchase them, procure them, purchase them all through a Snowflake marketplace. That's what native apps provides. All right, so what is Snowpark? Think about Snowpark. It is basically a way to run processes, run code that is non-SQL inside of Snowflake. And why is that important? Well, when customers came to us, they're like, look, we love Snowflake. We're able to consolidate all these data silos, get a single copy of data in Snowflake. But then when we're looking to do data engineering, for example, and we've got a team of data scientists or team of data engineers that's using Python, we can't do that in Snowflake, so we have to go stand up a Spark cluster somewhere else. We can't do the rest of the machine learning workflow in Snowflake. And so we introduced Snowpark to be able to let them do that, and now they can maintain the governance or leverage the governance that's already been built into Snowflake. We have low-level role-based access controls on every object in Snowflake, including Snowpark, which I'll go into in a little bit here. So this is the first time you're able to get a governed Python sandbox where you don't have to worry about maintaining all these different copies sitting around laptops and whatnot. So big one for customers. Language of choice we already covered. If I've got a team of Python developers, now they can develop against Snowflake, natively inside Snowflake. And then faster and cheaper. Because Snowflake was built for performance and for scale, we built a vectorized high-performance database. Now if you can push all that down to Snowflake, customers are seeing a 3.5x improvement over Spark at 2/3 of the cost. So let's dig into Snowpark a little bit. There's two key elements of Snowpark. There's the server side at the bottom and the client side at the top. Server side is what runs natively inside Snowflake. You can see SQL that we've had from the beginning. We also have JavaScript for the ability to script and do some programmatic things in Snowflake. But with Snowpark, we've introduced Python, we've introduced Java and Scala, and even other languages we'll easily be able to implement as we see demand from customers like yourselves. If we now take a look at the client side, think of this as a data frame API. How many of you folks do Python data engineering with data frames? Okay, good side of the room. If you're not familiar with data frames, think about it as a programmatic way to run a query. It's similar to running a SQL query, just with a different expression. And so if you're using data frames and PySpark, you can basically take that code and run it in Snowflake with minimal effort. And so that's what we introduced, the ability to now support all kinds of development workloads, teams that are using Python to do data engineering, as well as machine learning. And we'll go into that in the next slide. And even better, dbt was one of the first to integrate with us deeply here. So there's full dbt Python integration. Now that dbt introduced Python as another language, out of the box, we have integration with dbt with Snowpark already. And I don't know if any of you are using that yet in the room here today, but we're excited. We've got a lot of great customers. I'll talk about one customer story at the end. But now if you're using Python, you're taking advantage of Python for building pipelines, doing data transformation with Python, and even looking at new use cases with dbt with Python. Know that you can run it out of the box with Snowflake. Digging in a little further, if I look at Snowpark, it's an umbrella of a whole bunch of different functions and different API sets. And Snowflake is an enterprise database, and we treat everything as a database object. So when you look at Snowpark, the way we run Snowpark jobs is, one way is as a user-defined function, or UDF, where you can access things at a row level, returns a scalar value back. And then you can use vectorized UDFs, which is just running UDFs in parallel. Then there's also UDTFs, which are user-defined table functions. So instead of at a row level, I do it at a table level. And then you can see there's some new things we were just introduced around vectorizing UDTFs, and then also doing user-defined aggregate functions to allow for even more functionality. You can also run them as stored procedures. So instead of running a single command against a row of data or against a table of data, you can package up an entire set of code or entire function and then run it all in Snowflake. So you can run entire Python code. And stored procedures is what we're doing with dbt, which I'll show you in a little bit here. One last thing I'll hit on, I won't go into detail on, but I'll point you to more information when you need it, is in addition to using data frame API for data engineering with Python, we've also now introduced Snowpark ML API to do things like feature engineering, and training, and inferencing all in Snowflake. So our goal is to be able to allow you to support the entire machine learning workflow, to be able to do all the different things you're doing with deep learning. I'll talk about even large language models and Gen AI shortly here. And just as a quick example, you've got the client at the top that could be running in something like a Hex notebook. Great partner of ours, integrates deeply with Snowpark as well. You can run in VS Code. And so this is the client side. You can see an example here, df.filtered, like a where clause. And what happens is if you're running it as a user-defined function, which we're doing here, it gets translated to a SQL query. And using our connector for Python, it gets pushed down to Snowflake. And we already have a great SQL engine. It's very fast and optimized. This is why customers are seeing that 3.5x improvement. It gets processed in Snowflake. If you're sending an entire stored procedure, then the entire code gets sent inside Snowflake. And we've got this Python secure sandbox that executes that entire code. We're leveraging Anaconda to manage those libraries. So any library you're finding in Anaconda today, scikit-learn, Keras, et cetera, is supported through Snowpark. So it's really opening up a lot of additional functionality that wasn't there before. And now with dbt fully plugging in, any code you're writing with Python and dbt gets sent as a stored procedure, like I showed you in the previous slide, and gets processed all in Snowflake. So now you're getting the full optimization of Snowflake. You're maintaining a single copy of data. You don't have data copies everywhere. So governance is more easily maintained because you can leverage that same role-based access controls, a single copy of data, a single set of user policies, a single set of logs for auditing. Next, we'll talk about Streamlit. Any of you folks use Streamlit in the room? All right, great. So Streamlit is a company we bought last year. It's a great tool for building and prototyping an application, especially the UI, front end of that application, using a few simple, using Python, and not really using a lot of advanced Python at that. What I'm showing here is what was the pain point that was addressed. It's the life cycle of developing an app, especially if you're a Python developer. You're prototyping your app, you have to hand it off to multiple teams. They might write the front end in something like JavaScript. You might have to go through a security team. You might have to go through a network review. It's painful, and then anytime there's a change, like a patch, anytime you're running a new application, you have to start this whole process over again from the beginning. With Streamlit, now it runs natively inside Snowflake. So from a security perspective, as long as Snowflake is ready, past the security review, it's a standard within your organization. You're running the UI or the Streamlit app all inside Snowflake. You're using Python to build the entire thing, including obviously UI and other widgets. And so now you can go much faster in starting to either prototype or even roll apps in production. We've got many customers doing this today. It's a big, rich community. I think it's about 180,000 users today. So the nice thing with that is you can go grab modules from the community that are already out there to even get you started. The nice thing is we have some in dbt. So you can see a dbt monitoring application that's out there in Streamlit you can go download today. Snowpark Container Services. So this is great. Snowpark, now I'm able to push down a lot of the data plane part of the application. And I might be able to run the entire application if I'm using something like Streamlit in Snowflake. But what if I'm not? What if I have a more complicated UI built in something else, or I have other components that my application relies on and has dependencies on? How do I do that in Snowflake? Well, in June, we had our Snowflake Summit, our annual conference, and we introduced Snowpark Container Services. And what it is it allows you to run any application that can be containerized. Again, we use Kubernetes, which is the de facto standard, to run it in Snowflake and to leverage any kind of compute instance behind that, including GPUs. And we're getting a ton of machine learning partners doing deep learning, a ton of large language model providers, third-party, open source. This is opening up any application to now run in Snowflake. And what customers love about this is they can deploy an app natively in Snowflake, but if they own a project getting it to production, and Snowflake is already a standard, they can bypass, at least either reduce or bypass security reviews and MSA reviews, get that application out the door very quickly. What partners love, or someone building an app, partners, customers that are building apps to monetize, is now there's a way to monetize any application in Snowflake. And what I'll show you with native apps in a second here is there's a marketplace front end, and there's a way for customers to procure and purchase all through the Snowflake marketplace. So it really accelerate monetization, accelerate the development and the monetization of applications in Snowflake. And this opens up new workloads. I just mentioned that, but obviously a richness of machine learning. Now I can do deep learning training, inferencing. I can do large language models. I can run some custom code, C, C++. I can run, again, any application that can be containerized. I can run it in Snowflake, and customers can consume within their Snowflake account next to their data. And we front end this with native apps. We introduced native apps last year, actually, and we continue to optimize it this year. So native apps is the way that you can take an app and you can list it in a Snowflake marketplace. Customers can find it, and they can go procure it all through Snowflake. And now with Drawdown, which we introduced in our June summit, and those of you familiar with the cloud marketplaces, now you can leverage a budget that you have for Snowflake to purchase additional key technology components within your environment. What customers love about this is it's also a guardrail around the IP, well, partners or companies building the app, there's a guardrail around their IP within the native app framework. And then customers' data is also protected within this native app. So they can launch these apps natively. There's IP protection. It accelerates or removes friction for them getting into that product, getting into the evaluation, getting into production. So customers are really excited about this, and we've got a ton of customers already using native apps with Snowpark Container Services on the back end. And then real quick, let's talk about Gen AI, which is the hot topic. So you saw some of this at Summit as well for those of you that were there, but we introduced the ability to run large language models in these container services. And we're running open source ones like Llama 2. We're running third-party ones. We introduced Reka and AI21, and we're working on more. And then we've got some first-party large language models for driving a few key functions for us, like document AI, the ability to quickly use natural language processing and contextual search against any documents to get insight from those documents. We've got text to code, so you can increase productivity, write SQL code, auto SQL code, and then a more natural language-based search, all being driven by our first-party large language models. And we'll continue to invest more and more here. And obviously with Streamlit being inside Snowflake, you can also build front ends, Gen AI front ends, or any type of application on top of those large language models. All right, nothing's better than a customer story to end it and show a real world story here. So Lundbeck is a pharmaceutical company based out of Denmark. They've been in business for over 100 years. And they focus on neurological, medicine for neurological disorders like Alzheimer's. And they're in a unique position where they own their entire supply chain, from research to trials to production to commercialization. So they've got access to all their own data. And what they've been trying to do, what every company's trying to do, is get this 360 view of their customer to figure out how to provide a better customer experience. This is obviously for patients, but provide a better patient experience, figure out how to potentially drive better outcomes, and even upsell in certain situations. So they want a full omni-channel 360 experience. The problem is, even though they own all that data, the way that they're managing it and processing is a whole bunch of different disparate systems. The data silos that I mentioned in the beginning that's preventing a lot of companies from being able to take action with their data. So they looked at Snowflake, and they found that, hey, Snowflake helps me consolidate all these different data sets, all these different environments from all my different disparate systems into one platform, that is Snowflake. And then with dbt, they found, wow, dbt Cloud, I've got a single tool that allows all my data engineers to transform and build data models with one standard package that implements right into my development lifecycle, my DevOps lifecycle. So with that, they started to be able to consolidate all these different data sources. They've started to get a better view, customer 360 view. And one of the best parts of this was their data science teams were leveraging other disparate systems to process data. Then they found out about this dbt Snowpark integration for Python, and they started to onboard all these different data scientists that are now taking full advantage of dbt integration to Snowflake and the standardization that they've done with dbt Cloud and Snowflake, and the standardization they've done with dbt Cloud and Snowflake. And you can see some of the they're launching more campaigns, they're getting better patient outcomes, and they're looking to do even more as we continue to invest here. So with that, I will give you some interesting takeaways here. First off, more to come about the innovations we're making at our Snow Day event on November 1st. It's a virtual event. Please feel free to log in, learn more about our upcoming product roadmaps, where we'll continue to invest more and more in making it easier to build applications, build more rich applications in Snowflake. We have a Build conference, which is our developer conference coming up in December, I believe. More info on that online there in the link. And then we've got hands-on labs to try out the Snowpark integrations that I talked about and the dbt integrations to Snowpark that I talked about. And then I'll be here if you have any questions. So great to have the chance to present to all of you today. I hope you guys have a great time at the event tonight, and thank you very much. Yeah.